Brian O'Donnell, and you're watching The Science Show. Today, we have an exciting documentary about the central nervous system. First off, we'll have a brief overview about this system, followed by an explanation of the parts of the brain. And to finalize, we'll have an interview with a famous neuroscientist about addiction. The central nervous system consists of the brain and the spinal cord. Each of the major areas of the brain, the cerebellum, the cerebrum, and the brainstem, are responsible for processing and relaying information. The spinal cord connects the brain to the rest of the body, allowing it to send commands. The brain is divided into two hemispheres, the left and the right, both connected by a band of tissue called corpus callosum. Every hemisphere deals with the opposite side of the body and is divided into 4 lobes, each of them having a certain function. The frontal lobe makes judgment, forms plans, and evaluates consequences. The temporal lobe deals with hearing and smell, the occipital lobe with vision, and the parietal lobe with reading and speech.
So, have you ever wondered what are some of the parts of the brain? Coming up next on the Science Channel are brain parts.
The limbic system is responsible for your behavior, emotion, memory, and also motivation. It produces a feeling of happiness and well-being. The amygdala is a part of the limbic system, and it's related to long-term memory and also emotion learning, including fear and anxiety.
But there are many other major parts in our brain, such as the brainstem.
The brainstem is a very important part of the brain. It is connected to the spinal cord and makes sure important functions such as breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure are all carried out. Also, it carries out functions even though we are not conscious. It is divided in 3 parts: the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla oblongata.
But we can't forget about the cerebrum and the cerebellum.
The cerebellum is another region of our brain. It receives information about our muscles and joint positions, enabling to move gracefully and efficiently. But don't be mistaken, it's the cerebrum that sends commands to move your muscles.
The cerebrum is the largest region of the brain, and it is where conscious decisions are made. It is the site of learning, intelligence, and judgment. There are 2 layers in the cerebrum. The outer layer, called the cerebral cortex, is made out of gray matter. It controls movements and processes information from sense organs. It is where thoughts, plans, and learning abilities are processed. The inner layer is made out of white matter, and it connects the cerebrum to other parts of the brain.
And now we'll have a super interesting and exclusive interview with the famous neuroscientist and chemistry, Dr. Stephanie Murray.
Good morning, Dr. Murray. I understand you're here to talk to us about addiction.
Oh, hi, Brian. Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm here to talk about addiction. Well, I was just doing this experiment with a brain of a guy that was addicted to drugs before to see if there were any physical changes. I don't see many, but let me just tell you a bit more about addiction. Surprisingly, I myself was a drug addict when I was 16. I can guarantee you a horrible experience. Now that I study this area, I can see how much did it damage me. Thankfully, my sister Susan, which was 14 at that time, made me stop using it. Now I see all the damage it would have done to me if Susan hadn't convinced me that drugs were horrible. And I understand all the severe consequences of doing drugs in a more profound way, and I'm deeply thankful for Susan for saving my life. So Susan, if you're watching this, I just wanted to say that I love you and thank you for saving my life.
Wow, that is so interesting. I had no idea you were addicted to drugs.
It is certainly very interesting, but let me just tell you a bit more about how addiction works. Synapses are points at which a neuron can transfer an impulse to another cell. Nearly all addictive substances, both legal and illegal, can affect brain synapses. All those substances produce changes in a certain group of synapses, which uses a neurotransmitter, dopamine, and are associated with the brain's pleasure and reward centers. So, when we do something that brings us pleasure, the limbic system releases dopamine and produce the feeling of happiness. Addictive drugs act on dopamine in various ways, making the user feel pleasure or by intensifying or releasing more dopamine. The brain reacts to excessive dopamine levels by reducing the number of receptors of the neurotransmitter, causing normal activities to longer produce the sensation of pleasure they were supposed to before. They don't produce the sensation of pleasure anymore, and this makes the addicts feel depressed and sick without drugs and decide to take more and more.
Well, I'm afraid our time has come to an end. Thank you so much for coming, Dr. Murray.
We really enjoy having you here in the show with us.
Oh, thank you, Brian, for having me in your show. And remember, don't do drugs and have a nice day.
What an interesting interview, Brian, where our show has come to an end. Thanks for watching. For more information, come to our site, sciencechannel.com. Have a good day, Sophie.
That was all for the Science Channel's documentary on the super and wonderful brain. Thank you, Brian, for that super interesting interview with Dr. Murray. Our show has come to an end, but don't forget to watch our next show tomorrow, Exotic Mammals at 5 p.m., only here in the Science Channel. Thank you and have a nice day.